what I left off with before, last week, was pointing out this chapter is only 16 pages of this entire volume. And yet it is easily a third to a fourth of the film. The actual battle in the chapter is only 9 pages, so it's almost half of what is there. Okay, so I'm going to skip actually the entire battle. And I want to jump towards the end of that chapter, pages 549 and 550. The battle's already been won, and Gandalf and the others are leaving the next morning, and Gandalf is explaining to them the mystery of the wood, this sudden forest that has appeared overnight outside Helm's Deep. Bottom of 549, Gandalf explains to them, to Theoden and the others, they are herdsmen. Theoden, herdsmen? Where are their flocks? What are they, Gandalf? He says, they are the shepherds of the trees. Is it so long since you listened to tales by the fireside? There are children in your land who, out of the twisted threads of story, could pick the answer to your question. You have seen Ents, O king, Ents out of Fangorn Forest, which in your tongue you call the Entwood. Do you think that the name was given only in idle fancy? Nay, Theoden, it is otherwise. Okay? And one of the things Tolkien is doing there is he's pointing out the importance of names of things and how if we understood how things are named, we would understand a little bit more about the history of those things. For example, Murfreesboro. What's the borough come from? Take it all the way back to its earliest form, and it's Old Norse, that is, it's Viking in its original meaning. It's related to this, Berg, okay? It's a fortified place. So anything that has the word borough on the end, originally, okay, that implies that there's a mentality with this thing of some kind of fortified, protected place, all right? So Gandalf, just one second, Gandalf does that with the Ents. Theoden is familiar with the Ent wood. He never understood before that the wood is named after these things called the Ents. Okay? Question?
Just to save time, I have it in my notes that we went all the way up to chapter 5 when we were in the West last time.
Did we really? That's helpful. Of the second half?
Yes.
Okay, because I wondered why in the world, I could not believe we did not get that far. Okay. That's the second half. Thank you. That is through chapter 5 or to chapter 5? Okay. Chapter 5 then. Window on the west. What is the window on the west?
It's the door at the Crossroads.
Close. It's the opening of the cave. Okay, that Faramir and his men have essentially as their base of operations, their headquarters, so that when they go out into the forest and the fields of Ithilien, this is where they come back to every night. Okay? The window on the west looks out towards the ocean. Okay? So what happens in this chapter? We get Frodo and Sam talking with Faramir, and Faramir tells them about Boromir and his death. That is not how he died, but as soon as Frodo and Sam hear that Boromir is dead, what thought immediately goes into Frodo's mind? Not as much Sam's, but definitely Frodo's. Who was Boromir with the last time Frodo saw him? Merry, Pippin, Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, right? Boromir's dead. What conclusion does Frodo jump to? Everybody else is dead. If Boromir's dead, big strapping man that he was, if he's dead, the rest of them have got to be dead. What does this do to Frodo's outlook? His perspective on completing the journey? Yeah, he's lost all his steam. He has very little hope at this point. Okay? So, they keep talking, and Faramir mentions, page 670, the Grey Pilgrim. And Frodo's like, I wonder. Had he a name? Bottom of that page. Faramir says, Mithrandir, we called him in elf fashion, but he has a whole bunch of other names. And he gives the names that Gandalf is known by in various places of Middle-earth. By the places that are given, what we kind of can assume is that Gandalf is known all throughout Middle-earth. He's not only known in Gondor, in Rohan, in Rivendell, and the Shire. That is, you go to the far north of the map of Middle-earth, he has a name there. You go far to the east, he has a name there. You go far to the south, he has a name there. All right? And he finally says, in the north, Gandalf, Frodo, Gandalf. Yes, he was with us. He died. Okay? That kind of, takes the steam out of Faramir a little bit. Because he's thinking, if Gandalf's dead, how could the rest of you even be alive? They continue talking, and on 671, Faramir says about this thing that drove Boromir to madness for it. He says, what in truth this thing is, I cannot yet guess, because Sam hasn't yet slipped that it's the ring. But some heirloom of power and peril it must be, a fell weapon perchance. And if it was, he says, a thing that gave advantage in battle, I can well believe that Boromir, the proud and fearless, often rash, ever anxious for the glory of Minas Tirith and his own glory therein, might desire such a thing and be allured by it. He says, alas, he ever went on that errand. Who should have gone? Faramir. Why? You're right. Okay, he was the least favorite son. We're going to hear that from Denethor's mouth. Faramir's going to say, would you wish rather I and Boromir had switched places? Yes. I wish you were dead and Boromir was alive. Essentially what Denethor says. Okay? Not a good way to psych up your son before he's getting ready to go into battle against all the forces of Sauron. Okay? What else does Faramir mean, though? Who did the dream come to first? The riddle about go to Imladris, seek the sword that was broken, find the halfling. It came to Faramir first. Okay? But Boromir was, I'm the big tough one. I'll take the message, But then Faramir says at the bottom of 671, fear no more. I would not take this thing if it lay by the highway. Not were Minas Tirith falling in ruin, and I alone could save her. So means, and I alone could save her using this thing. Using the weapon of the Dark Lord for her good and my glory. Okay? He doesn't know what the thing is, right? He just said earlier, what in truth this thing is, I cannot guess. But now he says, and even if I knew what this thing was, if it was laying on the ground and I walked by it, I would walk by it. Even if I could bring victory to Minas Tirith. Why? What kind of victory would it bring? You ever heard of one of these kinds of victories? 2 letters, I believe. A Pyrrhic victory. Okay. Named after a Greek soldier named Pyrrhus. He won the battle. He lost the war. That is, he won the battle, but he ultimately lost. Woo! Great victory. Okay? No, I do not wish for such triumphs. Frodo, neither did the council, nor do I. Okay? So, they finally get to, all that's going on while they're walking. They finally get to the window on the west, and we see the one little, for lack of a better phrase, religious rite, if you even want to call it that, in the entire novel. Before they eat, they stand and look out the window on the west. It's their minute of silence. And Faramir's kind of surprised that the hobbits don't do anything like that either. Okay? And that's when, just shortly after that, Sam's just kind of running off at the mouth. He's had food, he's had drink. And Faramir and Sam are talking about Galadriel. And Faramir mentions she must be perilous. Sam, page 680. I don't know about perilous. Strikes me that folk takes their peril with them into Lorien and finds it there because they brought it. Remember what Aragorn said to Boromir after they came down from being kind of tested by Galadriel? Say no evil about the Lady Galadriel. The only evil here is that which is brought in. But perhaps you could call her perilous because she's so strong in herself. You could dash yourself to pieces on her like a ship on a rock, or drown yourself like a hobbit in a river. But neither rock nor river would be to blame. Now Boromir, I mean to speak ill of the dead, Faramir, yes, now Boromir, you would say, he took his peril with him? Sam, yes, sir, begging your pardon, a fine man as your brother was. As soon as he saw the enemy's ring, Sam, Sam and Frodo both jump up, shoulder to shoulder. They're getting ready to wield their little 16-inch swords against Faramir. They couldn't even reach his head with their swords, okay? Barely reach his heart. Sam says, now look here, sir. Don't you go taking advantage of my master because his servant's no better than a fool. You've spoken very handsome all along. Put me off my guard. How? Talking of elves and all. Sam is still like a little boy when the talk goes to elves, even though he's lived with elves, drunk with elves, etc. But handsome is as handsome does. In other words, time to show your quality. Are you what you say you are? And Faramir is kind of sitting there and goes, so, the ring, the one ring, the ring of rings. A chance for Faramir, captain of Gondor, to show his quality. And in the film, how does he show his quality? He takes them to Osgiliath on his way to taking them to Minas Tirith. This is probably the main reason why I just absolutely detest the films. What Jackson has done is with the character of Faramir is completely turn him inside out. He's made him the exact opposite of what he is. Well, Tolkien doesn't want him to be the exact opposite. Why? Because that's Boromir. Faramir is showing us what a true, noble individual is like. Alas for Boromir, it was too sore a trial. He knows what the trial was like. How you have increased my sorrow. But then he says, but you're less judges of men than I am of halflings. Okay, what experience of men do Frodo and Sam have? Aragorn, Bill Ferny back at the Prancing Pony Inn in Bree, who's a jerk. Okay, we don't know if they actually met any men at Rivendell other than Boromir. So their real experience of men are Aragorn and Boromir. It's not a pretty wide range, right? And Boromir and Faramir obviously aren't what? Aragorn. Aragorn kind of stands in a different class. We are truth speakers, we men of Gondor. What could Frodo say at that point? Boromir. That's what he could say. Boromir said, no, I don't want the ring. Frodo, give me the ring. We both seldom and then perform or die in the attempt. Remember the other day I talked about that old English poem, The Wanderer? I read a couple of lines from the Ubi Sunt motif in it. Well, The Wanderer also has an awful lot to say about boasting and doing. In the Old English poet says, don't make a boast. until you know what your mind is going to do when it comes time for that boast to be fulfilled. In other words, don't say, I'm the greatest monster killer there is. I'll kick anything, you know what. And then have Grendel come in the room that's 20 feet tall, chomping on your friend's head. And you go, yikes, and run. Okay? Old English poem Beowulf, there is a guy who's a great boaster. His name is Unferth. He challenges Beowulf when Beowulf arrives at the hall of the dance. Because Beowulf said, I'm a monster killer. I heard you have a monster, and I've come to eradicate the monster for you. And this guy, Unferth, just launches into him. Why? Because he wants glory. But he's not willing to take on Grendel. Because apparently 30 guys every night try, and for the last 12 years, they've become dinner for Grendel. Okay? So, he says, we boast seldom, then perform. That is, when we do boast, we perform or we die trying. Not if I found it on the highway would I take it, I said. Even if I were such a man as to desire this thing, he says. And even though I knew not clearly what this thing was when I spoke, which he didn't know what it was. He didn't know it was Sauron's ring, the one ring of power. And notice there's indication he and Gandalf have talked a little bit about this. Still, I should take those words as a vow and be held by them. Even if I knew what it was, I'd say, damn, I said I wouldn't use it. I have to stick to my vow. All right? So, chapter 6, the forbidden pool. Gollum's down there hunting fish. Fishes, he says. And Frodo tricks him so that Faramir can catch him. Why does Faramir want to catch him? Well, it's a capital crime to fish in that pool. There is a no fishing in this pool. Okay? And Gollum's down there catching fish and stuff. Why else does he want to catch him? What does Faramir want to do to Gollum? Does he want to kill him? No. He wants to look into his eyes. Faramir looks into his eyes and he says, you know, I can't tell you that he's unadulterated evil, but I wouldn't trust him. So they ask Gollum, so Gollum, where are you going to lead Frodo and Sam? And he finally admits, Cirith Ungol. And when he does, what does Faramir think about that? Let's see here. Page 691. Faramir, do you know the name of that high pass? Frodo, no. It is called Cirith Ungol. Gollum hissed sharply and began muttering to himself. Faramir looks at him. Is that not its name? No, yes, no, yes. But there's no other way. Master says we have to find a way. There is no other way. Faramir, how do you know that? Who has explored all the confines of the Dark Realm? Okay, the implication's kind of Gollum's been there. This is the way he found out. Okay? So, Gollum tells him they're going by Cirith Ungol. We get chapter 7, Journey to the Crossroads. What are the crossroads? Turn in your books, if you have them, back to you can use this big map on the back of the book. Okay? You got the Pass of Cirith Ungol here. Minas Morgul, that's the veil right there. This is the crossroad. Here's the road coming here. There's a road coming out of Mordor here, and it comes down and it flows to the west right there. All right? So, they make their way to this crossroads. 702. So you've got Mordor over here, Mount Doom, spitting off fire and stuff. Barad-dûr is up here. The mountains of shadow are like this. And there's a road that runs straight across, and then there's another road that runs up north. This road comes down here. There's another road that runs this way, and then it keeps running down this way. This is the crossroads they come to. This is the outer west, so the sun is setting over here. All right. Gondor is back here. Osgiliath is over here a little bit. So they get to this point. The sky is dark, not because it's sunset, but because there is a foul cloud coming out of Mordor, coming over the mountains of Mordor. It's like when a really strong cold front comes into Murfreesboro, you can see the front of it, and it just barrels in, okay? Only this is just blackness, just like, if you've ever been in LA, really bad smog, okay? Just this brown gunk. And they're standing here, and the cloud is coming over them, and the sun is setting. And what does it do? They see, right at the crossroads, right here, they see a statue. The head's been lopped off. And instead of the head, there's now a round ball with the Eye of Sauron painted on it and a bunch of foul graffiti. Okay? But Frodo looks, and he sees the head of the statue lying on the ground. Suddenly, caught by the level beams, Frodo saw the old king's head. It was lying rolled away by the roadside. Look, Sam, look! The king has got a crown again, because the head is lying on the ground, and a ivy plant with golden flowers has wound around the crown, the forehead of this statue. The eyes were hollow, carven beard was broken, but around the high stern forehead there was a coronal of silver and gold. A trailing plant with flowers like small white stars had bound itself across the brows. And Frodo says, they cannot conquer forever. Who's the they? What is he talking about? They cannot conquer forever. The people who knocked the head off the statue? Maybe. I think it's even more generic than that. Evil. This is what Tolkien was talking about in the fairy story essay when he's talking about discatastrophe and eucatastrophe. He says eucatastrophe does not deny the possibility of discatastrophe. Okay? This is what we normally think of when we think of the word catastrophe. Like what's going to happen to Puerto Rico in about 12 hours. Strongest hurricane in the last 30 or 40 years to hit Puerto Rico. It's going to go directly over it. I mean, there's going to be a lot of damage. Okay? That's a discatastrophe. Tolkien says the eucatastrophe does not deny the possibility of this. It doesn't say, oh, it's okay, Johnny. Everything's going to be okay. You'll wake up tomorrow, and your mommy and daddy, who are dead from the Twin Towers falling, they'll be alive again. No, it doesn't say that. In fact, he says, the eucatastrophe says, in the face of much evidence to the contrary, ultimately, good will prevail. Much evidence to the contrary? What does that mean? That means you're one of 6 million Jews getting fried in the ovens of the German death camps. For you, what does that mean? Lights out, man. Means I don't walk out of here. But the eucatastrophic idea says that it might be my end, but it's not our end, our people's end. Okay? That's in the face of much evidence. It might end up, you're the last person of your squad or your platoon fighting. And all your other friends, all your other comrades have died. Does it mean you throw your hands up, wave the white flag? No. It means you go on, you keep fighting. Why? Because ultimately, you might die, but the side of good will win. And that's where Tolkien says, in that sense, it gives a gleam, a glimmer of joy beyond the confines of this world. In other words, a kind of supernatural joy. How did this happen? This little sunlight on the head of the fallen statue. Is that because somebody a couple miles away shining a great big giant searchlight on it and go, hey, let's cheer Frodo up? No. This is a natural eucatastrophe. Just as we saw in Rowan, when Theoden came down out of his hall, when Theoden came outside of Edoras, stood on the steps, and what did we see when he stood there? A shaft of light breaks through the clouds, and he gets this beautiful, like, painting in front of him. And he says, it is not so dark. And yet, in a few pages, we're going to see Theoden die. Why? Because his page in the story comes to an end. But the story goes on. So, they cannot conquer forever. And then suddenly, the brief glimpse, gone. And it's what? Pitch black. The sun sets, and it's like that darkness that comes out of Mordor shuts all the light off. Okay? So they start to make their way up the stairs of Cirith Ungol. And they get about halfway up, a little more than halfway actually, and Tolkien gives us a bit of literary criticism. In the unlikely person of Sam. They take a break, and they're talking about food and drink. Okay, what should you never talk about when you're hungry and thirsty? Food and drink. But they're saying, but I don't want to drink any water that we find here because this place is pretty foul. And Frodo says, I don't like anything here, Sam. Page 711. Just before the long paragraph at the bottom. I don't like anything here at all, said Frodo. Step or stone, breath or bone. Earth, air, and water. All seem accursed. But so our path is laid. See, earlier when they went through the dead marshes, what did Frodo say to Gollum? How do we shape our path? What did he mean? Okay, partially. They've got to get across the marshes, right? Have you ever walked, hiked, or whatever through marsh? The idea is to do what? Find the solid ground. Don't step in the part that sucks you down. Okay? So, how do we shape our path, Gollum? Where do we get our right footing? Notice the implication there is, it's not destiny. It's not fate. What could they do? Turn around. Here, this is how our path is laid. Frodo has become much more fatalistic, much more deterministic. I have to go this way. This is the only way to go. And that's what launches Sam into a bout of literary criticism. Yes, that's so, said Sam. And we shouldn't be here at all if we'd known more about it before we started. Okay, notice Sam's using we. What does he really mean? I wouldn't be here if I'd known this is where I was going to be. Way back when I was cutting your grass outside your room and eavesdropping on old Mr. Gandalf. He's saying, if Gandalf told us then where we would be right now, we wouldn't have come. Well, didn't Gandalf say what needed to be done if they were going to destroy the ring? Remember when Frodo yelled out, I really do wish to destroy the ring? And then he kind of catches himself because he realizes, that's really bad because I'm the agent in that sentence. That's a very active sentence. I want to be passive. Or really wish to have it destroyed. Yeah, that's it. Let's let some unnamed person out there do the destroying. Because Gandalf says what? You want to destroy the ring? How do you do that? One way. Only one way. Take it to Orodruin and drop it in the cracks of doom. See, it's not even enough where you take it to the mountain and say, oh, great God, mountain of fire, and you throw it to it. You got to find the exact place that Sauron forged the ring. It's not like, there's a river of lava coming down and you can go, it's close enough. Drop it in. It has to be the place called the Sameth Naur. Okay? So Sam goes on. But I suppose it's often that way. The brave things in the old tales and songs, Mr. Frodo. Adventures, as I used to call them. I used to think they were things the wonderful folk of the stories went out and looked for. Because they wanted them. Why? Because they were exciting and life was a bit dull. A kind of a sport, as you might say. Okay, so what's he talking about? He's talking about the great heroic tales he heard as a child. He's talking about the great heroic tales. Well, I shouldn't say this because I don't think great heroic tales are told anymore to children. The great heroic tales Tolkien was told as a child. The stories of King Arthur and his knights. The story of Beowulf. The stories of Achilles and Odysseus and Agamemnon and Charlemagne. Okay? And all these heroes who go out and fight monsters, fight evil people, beings, etc., and they win. So what has Sam said? I used to think the people in these stories, King Arthur as an example, what? They're sitting around Camelot one day and, looks over at Sir Gawain or Lancelot and says, guys, I'm bored. Let's go do something fun. Let's go find a dragon. Let's go find an ogre. Let's go rescue a damsel in distress. Oh, look, there's Guinevere. Lancelot. But that's not the way of it, he says, with the tales that really mattered, or the ones that stay in the mind. Folk seem to have been just landed in them, usually. In other words, they didn't go looking for great heroic adventures. Who could Sam use as a very close, personal example? Bilbo. About 70, 80 years ago, Bilbo gets a knock on his door. The beginning of that book is called An Unexpected Party. And it's Gandalf. And he's saying, I'm here, I'm looking for a burglar to come on a journey. Bilbo's like, we're just fat, dumb hobbits here. We don't like adventures, we're not burglars. Go away. And Gandalf scratches a symbol on the door, and the next day, a couple dwarves show up. A couple more dwarves show up. And eventually, there are 13 dwarves standing inside his house, eating everything he has. Bilbo didn't go looking for that. It just came to him. Their paths were laid that way, as you put it. Notice what Sam has just done. He's taken Frodo's words about where they are right now, and he's made them into story. But I expect they had lots of chances, like us, of turning back, only they didn't. If you've read The Hobbit, where did Bilbo have a chance of turning back? No, because there's not really a council of Elrond. I mean, they do show up at Elrond's house. How about the very next morning? He wakes up after all the dwarves leave. He could just say, have fun storming the castle, and they'd be gone and he'd be home. But something happened to him with the dwarves the night before when they were singing the songs of the Misty Mountains. It awoke something in him. He says, I expect they had lots of chances, like us, of turning back. Only they didn't. Okay, the like us does refer to Council of Elrond. They could have turned back there. Where else could they have turned back? Bree? Here, Mr. Strider, you take it. Of course, Frodo would not be able to do that, but theoretically that's a possibility. No, and if they had, that is, if they'd stopped and turned around, we shouldn't know, because they'd have been forgotten. Why would they have been forgotten?
Don't tell stories about people who don't do anything.
Yeah. The only reason we know about King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table is because they went off and did glorious things. Guys that sit at home and drink beer all the time, you don't care about them because that's the common thing. It's the uncommon thing that sticks out. We hear about those as just went on, and not all to a good end. What's the special forces guy? Luttrell? Marcus Luttrell. Special forces, where? Afghanistan. He and his guys are out. Everybody else killed. He's the only one that lives. Okay. Why? Why do we know the story? One, because he lived to tell it. But because they went on. Okay. And not all to a good end, Sam says, mind you. At least not to what folk inside a story and not outside it call a good end. You know, here's what Sam means by the folk on the outside looking in saying this is a good story. Or, excuse me, the folk on the inside. You know, coming home, finding things all right, though not quite the same, like old Mr. Bilbo. Or like he drew a deep breath. Now, let me back up. Sam turned to Bywater and so came back up the hill as day was ending once more. And he went on, and there was yellow light and fire within, and the evening meal was ready, and he was expected. And Rose drew him in and set him in his chair and put little Eleanor upon his lap. He drew a deep breath. Well, I'm back, he said. That's what Sam says to those that are inside the story. That's a good story. Sam gets the perfect happy ending. This is all he ever wanted in life. We never hear that this is what Frodo wanted out of life. Okay? So he goes on. But those kinds of tales, the one that we just read the ending of, those aren't always the best tales to hear. Though they may be the best tales to get landed in. I wonder what sort of a tale we've fallen into. Notice, Sam is aware. What we are doing is the stuff of legends. What did Aragorn say to Éomer in the Riders of the Rohirrim? You are doing the stuff of legends. Why? Because it's the people that come later that tell the legends. And what you do determines whether or not you are part of the legend. Frodo, I wonder. That is, I wonder what kind of tale we're in. But I don't know, and that's the way of a real tale. Take anyone that you're fond of. You may know or guess what kind of a tale it is, happy ending or sad ending, but the people in it don't know. You don't want them to. Why don't you want them to know? What if the people in the story know that they all die at the end? Louder? Yeah. If you're told, at the end of this journey, you're going to die, what might be a logical thing to do? Well, hell, I'm just turning around then. I'm not going to keep going on that journey. Have you ever heard of or read the play Oedipus Rex or Oedipus the King?
Yes, we love that shit.
Okay. What happens in Oedipus?
He rapes his mom.
No, he doesn't rape his mom. When his mother is pregnant with him, she and her husband receive a prophecy from the god, from Apollo. That child is destined to kill you, Laius, that's the father, and to marry you, Jocasta. Laius is like, I don't think so. Okay? But he doesn't abort the child. Instead, she delivers the child. He gives him to a shepherd of his and says, take this baby and expose him on Mount Kithaeron. That is, take him to the mountain and leave him there. Shepherd does. But he meets somebody else. And he feels pity for the little child who's had his ankles nailed together so that he can't even crawl. Okay? And he gives the child to this other person. The child then gets raised in a different town entirely. Child comes to be 18, 20 years old, and a drunk guy at a feast says, you're going to kill your father and sleep with your mother. And the kid's like, what? How dare you? So he goes to the Oracle of Delphi. And the prophet says, you are destined to kill your father and sleep with your mother. He's like, ew, don't want to do that. And so he runs away. Only problem is, he runs away from the people that he thinks are his mother and father, and they're not. They're his adopted parents. And when he runs away, a guy in a carriage won't get off the road for him. So what's he do? He's kind of hot-headed. He kills him. Next thing he knows, that road leads straight to a city. The city has a sphinx that is killing people in the city. He solves the riddle of the sphinx, and guess what? The big prize behind door number 1 for solving the riddle of the sphinx is not only the sphinx goes away, but you wed the queen of the city whose husband was murdered. So what 2 things do you never do if you've been told by the gods you are going to kill your father and marry your mother? Okay, run away from your step-parents. Louder?
Probably shouldn't kill anybody.
Yeah. Or, let's say killing's in your habit, Don't kill any man old enough to be your father. So, cut it off, 10 years older than you, tops. I know that's really pushing it, but 10 years old, that's it. Don't sleep with any woman old enough to be your mother. He does them both. Okay. How does all that come about? Because he's told this is what's going to happen. That's why Frodo says, you don't want them to know what's going to happen. And yet, where have we seen in here little inklings of what could happen? What's Frodo wearing around his neck? Other than the ring. The phial of Galadriel, which has in it the light from the star, which she gathered from the mirror of Galadriel, which they looked in and saw what? Images. She says, sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't happen. Not really sure. Then why the hell show it to him? Sam sees the party tree broken down. His father turned out. Sam gets home. Guess what? That party tree is thrown down. Okay. He sees Frodo lying, tied up in like a cave. We're going to get to that really quick. And he's going to go, hot damn, there it is. No, sir, of course not, Sam says. Baron now. Sam's still, playing literary critic. Baron now. He never thought he was going to get that Silmaril from the Iron Crown of Thangor Drim, and yet he did. Do you really think, go back and, go and read the Silmarillion. Do you really think Baron's like, oh, it's never going to happen, but I'm going to try it? No. See, Sam's wrong there. Sam doesn't know the tale fully. Baron did think he would be able to. And now is a worse place and a blacker danger than ours. But that's a long tale, of course, and goes on past the happiness, that is, getting the Silmaril, and into grief, Baron dying, and then beyond it, Baron and Luthien being reunited. And he goes, and the Silmaril went on and came to Arendelle, and we've got some of that light in that star glass that the lady gave you. We're in the same tale. The tale of Baron and Luthien, chapter 5643. Don't the great tales never end, Frodo? No, they never end as tales, but the people in them come and go when their parts ended. Our part will end later or sooner. Why not just end with our part will end later? Because that's too hopeful. See, Frodo's mind's already becoming corrupted by the ring. Not corrupted in the sense that he can't give it away. Corrupted in the sense that the ring's telling him. Not where he hears it. You will fail. Why will he fail? Because any mortal who possesses the ring long enough will be possessed by the ring. Frodo hasn't kept it nearly as long as Gollum did. But what has Frodo done with the ring that Gollum didn't do? He's trying to get rid of it. The ring doesn't like that. Sam. And then we can have some rest and some sleep. When our part ends, then we can have some rest and some sleep. Notice what Sam is assuming. We'll live. We'll make it. We'll get from here all the way to here, couple weeks march, and back out. And all the way back to the Shire. And I mean just that, Mr. Frodo. All right? And then he goes on and talks about people telling about their story and such. They keep talking. They talk about Gollum. And Sam wonders, I wonder what Gollum thinks he is in the story. Is he a good guy or a villain? And Frodo says, bottom of 713, very likely he can't guess himself. And I don't think he's got just one plain scheme in his muddled head. I think he really is in part trying to save the precious from the enemy as long as he can. Sam, yes, slinker and stinker. Okay? So Sam and Frodo camp there for a while. Gollum's gone off. They don't know where. And Sam says to Frodo, you sleep, I'll keep watch. Frodo puts his head in Sam's lap. Boom, they're out like a light, both of them. Okay? This next little scene is key. Gollum comes back hours later. And what does he see? He sees Sam leaning up against the rock with Frodo, lying and his head in Sam's lap, and Frodo's hand, one of Sam's hand on Frodo's forehead and the other on his chest like this. Why is Sam sleeping like this? Is this some homoerotic thing? No. It's just making sure Frodo doesn't move and Sam not be aware of it. Frodo can't get up without Sam waking up. Okay? So Gollum comes and he sees them. And you get this description. A strange expression passed over his lean, hungry face. The gleam faded from his eyes. They went dim and gray, old and tired. A spasm of pain seemed to twist him, and he turned away, peering back up towards the pass, shaking his head as if engaged in some interior debate. What interior debate? What's Gollum thinking? I shouldn't do it. He's already been up the pass. He's already notified, because this happens later, he's already notified Shelob. Okay? I'm bringing two to you. And now he thinks, no. Why? Well, look at that description again. His eyes went dim and gray, old and tired. He slowly puts out a trembling hand. Very cautiously, he touches Frodo's knee, but almost the touch was a caress. Why does he touch Frodo on the knee? Why not the foot? Why not the shoulder? Why not the elbow? Why not the stomach? Why not any place but the knee? It's because touching him on the knee indicates an act of supplication. In classical literature, Greek, Roman, Hebrew, the Old Testament, when somebody wants to beg mercy from somebody else, you see this throughout the Iliad, the Odyssey, and the Aeneid. The person begging for mercy goes up to the person who can grant mercy and puts their arms around their knees and either lays their head on the knee or kisses the knee. Sometimes it's just putting the hands on the knees. Okay? In the Old Testament, when a person goes to his father for a blessing, he goes and puts his hands on the father's knee. Okay? Gollum puts his hand out on Frodo's knee. Tolkien knows the associations that image suggests. This is Gollum's opportunity, let's say, for real redemption. This is the moment that Gollum can really turn. Okay? How do I know? Look at the description of what comes immediately thereafter. For a fleeting moment, could one of the sleepers have seen him, they would have thought that they beheld an old, weary hobbit. shrunken by the years that had carried him far beyond his time, beyond friends and kin and the fields and streams of youth, an old starved pitiable thing. And what is that shrunken, old, starved, pitiable hobbit doing? Cue the old AT&T commercial. Reaching out and touching someone. What is Gollum doing? Connecting with his hobbit brethren. This is an image of relationship, of community. Okay? And what happens? Frodo stirs, Sam wakes up. Hey you, what are you up to? Nothing. Nice, master. I dare say. But where have you been to? Sneaking off and sneaking back, you old villain. Now look what Gollum does. Gollum withdrew himself. Okay? That means physically, he draws away. Okay? But what else? And a green glint flickered under his heavy lids. What does that green glint always mean? Mischief. Evil is afoot. Okay? Almost spider-like he looked now, like he did when he was climbing down the cliffs of the Immen Mule. Okay? But also foreshadowing the even bigger spider they're going to run into. And what did Gollum say? Or what does the narrator say? The fleeting moment had passed beyond recall. Whose recall? Gollum's. That moment, that opportunity for Sam and Frodo to welcome Gollum back into the Hobbit kind of community, even though Gollum's 600 years older than they are. Okay? Gone. For how long? Forever. Sneaking. Hobbits always so polite. Yes, oh, nice. Hobbits. In other words, you're going to pay. All right? So, they go off. Gollum runs on ahead of them. They run into the ropes blocking the way, the web. They see the eyes in some of the tunnels. And page 721, Shelob approaches. Okay. Frodo holds the file aloft so they can see the spider, and it's huge. Okay. You know, Sam stands maybe 4 feet tall. He holds up the sword, so the sword is maybe this high. Shelob comes and stands over him. She has to lower herself down before she even hits that sword. So the bulk of her body probably stands normally as she walks up here. Now when spiders walk, do they walk on their legs fully erect? No. You know, they're bent and arched. So what can they do? They can bring their legs in, lift themselves even higher. So Shelob's body is probably the length of these 4 desks and maybe another 2. So when you think of the mass of that thing, the body is probably, you know, that big. And that's not even the head. That's just the abdomen. So those of you who don't like spiders, you get the idea. This is a stinking big spider. Okay? So, what is it? I'm skipping a bunch. What is it that harms Shelob more than anything? Because Sam is getting ready to go to help Frodo, and Gollum comes and jumps him. Okay? We're going to see that happen one more time in the course of the novel. Gollum's going to jump Sam. 729. What affects Shelob even more than Sting is when Sam runs up to Frodo, he sees Frodo lying there, and he takes the phial, the glass, and he says Galadriel. And then he hears voices far off, the crying of the elves as they walked under the stars. It's page 729. In the beloved shadows of the Shire and the music of the elves. He's thinking when they saw those elves in the Shire, before Sam and Frodo even left the Shire. And he says again, Gilthoniel a Elbereth, a Elbereth Gilthoniel, a Minel Palanderio, Lenalisi de Ingurthos, a Tironin Fenuelos. And the light shines out. Okay? So he stabs her, she goes away, and what happens? Sam passes out. Okay, think about that first of all. He holds the sword up, she comes down on it, she goes back up. What obviously happens? You know, this crud comes out on him. I'd pass out too. He passes out and then he comes back. Page 731. He's sitting beside Frodo. These are the choices of Master Samwise. What can he choose? Leave where? Go where?
Back to the Shire.
Okay. Does he ever actually even consider that?
No.
Do you ever think of, yeah, the hell with it, I'm done. No, he doesn't. The two things he thinks of are taking the ring and trying to fulfill the quest on his own. And he's thinking, that's not going to happen because I'm Samwise. Old English, remember I put up on the board, means half-wise. Okay? Dumb, in other words. What's his other choice? Sit by Mr. Frodo, smooth his hair so that when the orcs come, he'll at least look good. And then what happens? Sauron gets the ring. End of story. Okay? So that's definite failure. There's no 1% chance. He takes the ring and goes on, yeah, there's that 1% chance he can succeed. Okay? So, what does he take from Frodo? Some of which he already has. Okay? He takes Sting. Why? Frodo doesn't need it because he's dead, Sam thinks. What else does he take? The ring, because it wouldn't be smart to go off into Mordor without that. And one other thing? The phial, the glass, the star glass. Okay? So, he decides to go on. He puts on the ring, and he hears all kinds of stuff. He hears the orcs, and he follows them, and they take Frodo's body, and he hears them arguing, and that's when he discovers Frodo's not dead. He's just mostly dead. And we finished the Two Towers, and if we're reading this for the first time in 1954, now we have to wait from November of 1954, I think, to October of 1955. That's a long time to wait with this kind of cliffhanger. Okay? So you hurriedly run to your local booksellers, buy Return of the King, and what does Tolkien do? He takes us back to Minas Tirith. We want to know what's going to happen to Sam and Frodo. But no, he takes us where? Yeah, back to Gandalf and Pippin at the end of the third book. Okay?
I always thought it was great how the Two Towers ends talking about Frodo and Sam, and the very first word of the next book is Pippin.
Yeah, almost.
This guy can't. Come on.
Yeah, he's really twisted when you think about it. I mean, he understands how to craft a novel so that you have all of these threads, and then they all get tied up by the end. Rowling's going to be not quite the opposite, but Rowling has all kinds of loose threads that she tries to deal with Pottermore in interviews. Tries to say, oh no, that's not what I meant. You can't do that. See, the work has got to survive on its own. She has come up with explanation after explanation for flaws in her story. Okay, and the explanations are in Pottermore. You got to read Pottermore stuff in order to see how she answers those. Okay, we'll talk about those when we get to it. So, Minas Tirith. We go back to Gandalf and Pippin, and they're on Shadowfax and riding on along. They make their way to Minas Tirith, and just before Gandalf and Pippin have their interview with Denethor, okay, the steward of Gondor, Gandalf says to Pippin, page 753, Be careful of your words, Master Peregrine. This is no time for hobbit pertness. Theoden is a kindly old man. Denethor is of another sort, proud and subtle, a man of far greater lineage and power, though he's not called a king. He says, don't tell him more than you need. Leave Frodo out of it. Don't mention Aragorn either. Why not? What is wrong with Strider? He meant to come here, didn't he? And he'll be arriving soon himself. Won't he, Mr. Gandalf? He's like a 5-year-old, okay? Gandalf, maybe. But if he comes, it's likely to be in some way no one expects, not even Denethor. Okay? He halts. Notice, he's at the door to the hall. Okay? See, Master Pippin, there is no time to instruct you now in the history of Gondor, though it might have been better if you'd learned something of it when you were still birds nesting, that is, stealing eggs and stuff from birds' nests, and playing truant in the woods of the Shire. Do as I bid. It is scarcely wise when bringing the news of the death of his heir to a mighty lord to speak overmuch of the coming of one who will, if he comes, claim the kingship. Kingship? Huh? Oh, shut up. Has Pippin heard anything about Aragorn? Apparently not. Okay? So they go in. And Denethor sees that there is a halfling with him, and Gandalf says, not the one the riddle spoke of. He says, yet a halfling still, top of 755. Okay? And Denethor says, Faramir should have gone in Boromir's stead. Gandalf, he would have gone. That's Gandalf's kind of like little sticking the dagger in and just twisting it a little bit. You wanted Boromir to go. Okay? So they talk a little bit, and Pippin finds out about Boromir's death. And he tries to figure out the number of days, how long ago it was that he heard Boromir blow his horn. He says, yes, 13 days. But no help came, only more orcs. So, Denethor says, you were there. Tell me more. Why did no help come? How did you escape? Pippin flushed and forgot his fear. That is, what does it mean he flushed? Blood rushed to his head, so he doesn't think. The mightiest man may be slain by one arrow. Boromir was pierced by many. When I last saw him, he sank beside a tree and plucked a black feathered shaft from his side. Then I swooned and was made captive. In other words, Pippin says, when I last saw him, he was alive. Now, he already knows from being around Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli that Boromir died. He says, I honor his memory. And then he looks Denethor in the eye. Little service, no doubt, will so great a lord of men think to find in a hobbit, a halfling from the northern shire. Yet such as it is, I will offer it in payment of my debt. He pulls out his little sword and lays it at Denethor's feet. What is that a sign of? Fealty. He is offering his services, such as they are. Denethor picks up the sword and says, made in the north by our own kindred. Pippin says where it came from. Gandalf says, you sure? Please, no. Pippin, yes, I am. So he swears fealty. Notice, page 756. To whom? To the Lord and Steward of the realm. Now you can read that as Lord and Steward, Lord, King, and Steward. Or you can read Lord and Steward as referring to the same person. It's not how Aragorn interprets it. Because later on, when Aragorn becomes king, he reminds Pippin, by the way, you are a sworn knight of mine, and if I call, you come. He's like, damn, okay. So, Pippin talks. He talks and talks and talks and talks and talks. And they finish, and Gandalf kind of says, it doesn't matter to you that, one, I'm here, and two, Isengard is overthrown, and the staff of Saruman is broken. I already know about all that, Denethor says. And Gandalf's got to be going, didn't send any messengers. How do you already know? Because Gandalf rode like the wind on Shadowfax's back. And Pippin looks at Gandalf and Denethor because they engage in a staring contest. Game of, visual chicken, so to speak. Denethor looked indeed much more like a great wizard than Gandalf did. More kingly, beautiful, powerful, older, yet by a sense other than sight. Pippin perceived that Gandalf had the greater power, the deeper wisdom, and a majesty that was veiled. And he was older, far older. And he wonders, how much older? And then he wonders, what is Gandalf? He's not human like the rest of us are. Well, Pippin's not human. He's not a man like other men are men. In what far time and place did he come into the world, and when would he leave it? And then his musings broke off because he saw Denethor break eye contact. Score one for Gandalf. And he says, for though the stones be lost, they say, still the lords of Gondor have keener sight than lesser men. Okay. So, Pippin talks for a bit. And Denethor says to Gandalf that you can come as you please, come and go as you please. He says, kind of forgive my old man's folly. And Gandalf says, top of that next page, 758. Nay, Lord, not folly. Do you think I do not understand your purpose in questioning for an hour one who knows the least while I sit by? In other words, I sat here this whole time for an hour and you questioned Pippin while I sat by. And you could have questioned me. You don't think I don't understand that? Denethor, if you understand it, then be content. Pride would be folly that disdained help and counsel at need. But you deal out such gifts according to your own designs. In other words, I don't need your help. Why? Because your help has strings attached. That's what Denethor thinks. That when Gandalf offers help, he always does it because he's moving the chess pieces on the board. The Lord of Gondor is not to be made the tool of other men's purposes, he says, however worthy. In other words, I'm not saying your purposes, Gandalf, are not worthy. But to him, the Lord of Gondor, there is no purpose higher in the world as it now stands than the good of Gondor. And the rule of Gondor, my lord, is mine, and no other man's unless the king should come again. So what's he saying? Let's say this is Gondor. Mordor's over here, and the rest of the north and everything's up there. He's saying, this is mine. I don't care what happens to everything else. If the Shire, if Rowan, if Rivendell, the Misty Mountains, Mirkwood, if it all burns, so be it, as long as Gondor stands. This is all I care about. And it's my job to preserve this. He says, unless the king should come again. Because if the king should come again, then it's the king's job. Okay? Unless the king should come again, Gandalf says. Well, my lord steward, and notice, he throws the steward back in. Because Denethor's been referring to himself just as Lord of Gondor. Drop the little steward part, since he's not been a king for a couple thousand years. Gandalf adds it back. It is your task to keep some kingdom still against that event. What event? The return of the king. Right? Which few now look to see. In that task you shall have all the aid that you are pleased to ask for. In other words, you want to preserve Gondor? I'll do whatever I can to help you. But I will say this. The rule of no realm is mine. See, Denethor, Gandalf is suggesting, Denethor thinks maybe Gandalf wants to rule. The rule of no realm is mine. Neither of Gondor nor any other, great or small. That is, I don't want to rule the Shire. I don't want to rule Rivendell. I don't want to rule Lorien. I don't want to rule, right? But all worthy things that are in peril as the world now stands, those are my care. Why? For I also am a steward. Did you not know? See, Denethor is steward of Gondor. What is Gandalf saying he's steward of? Yeah, everything. And Gondor is what in terms of Middle Earth? Just a little part. So that when Gandalf says, and for my part, I shall not wholly fail of my task, though Gondor should perish. If anything passes through this night that can still grow fair or bear fruit and flower again in days to come. Even if Gondor burns, if there's a tree over here that blooms and brings forth fruit, Gandalf says, I will not have wholly failed. What does that adverb wholly mean? Completely. I might have failed 99%. If there's only one flower left, blooming in Middle Earth, I haven't failed. That's still life. Okay? What is the steward? Yeah, a caretaker. What is the caretaker for whom, though?
The person who it belongs to.
Yeah, the person it belongs to. Like you can become a caretaker of a house because the people who own the house don't live there right now. They're off traveling, they live in another house, something like that. A steward is the exact same thing. Okay? He's the steward of Gondor. Why? Because the king isn't around. When the king shows up, there's no need for a steward. So, they go off and Faramir live in Ithilien. We will see. So who does Gandalf steward Middle Earth for? Is it a real Iluvatar? God. Is it Manwë, the chief of the gods? It's unclear. But what he's saying is all of this belongs to somebody else or belongs to somebody. It's definitely not Sauron. Sauron thinks it's his or should be his. Right? So, Pippin and Gandalf go off and talk. Pippin meets Baragond. He gets dressed in the livery, that is the uniform of Gondor. And then he meets Baragond's son, Burgil. Then we go to chapter 2, Passing of the Great Company. Okay? Trying to do an awful lot. What is the passing? Hold on, we'll skip that for a moment. Riders from the north come down and they bring something for Aragorn, but he doesn't open it up right there. This is something given to him by Arwen. And when Halbrand says, this is from the Lady Arwen, and it is for, the days now are short, 775, either our hope cometh or all hope's in, therefore I send thee what I have made for thee. Aragorn says, okay, keep it rolled up, I know what it is. Okay? 777, the riders of Rohan are mustering their arms, they're getting ready, and Merry, who's the last of the fellowship left there, offers his service to Theoden. He doesn't know that Pippin has offered his to Denethor. So Merry offers his sword. Okay? Theoden says, gladly will I take it. Okay? 779, Aragorn tells Theoden and Eomer he's got to take the paths of the dead. They're like, why? Nobody goes through there and lives. That's why it's called Paths of the Dead. Okay? But Aragorn says, don't worry about me, I can. He and Legolas and Gimli go off by themselves a little bit. And on 780, he tells Legolas and Gimli he's looked in the stone of Orthanc. Gimli, you have looked in that accursed stone of wizardry? Did you say aught to him? Even Gandalf feared that encounter. Aragorn, you forget to whom you speak. He says that sternly. Why? What does Gimli imply? What did you betray to Sauron?
Yeah, you're just a guy.
Yeah, you're just a guy. You forget to whom you speak. What does Aragorn mean by that? I am Aragorn, son of Arathorn, am called Elisar Elfstone, Dunadan, here's the sword that was broken. It will never break again. The once and future king, kind of a thing. Okay? What do you fear that I should say to him? Okay? He says, no, Gimli, don't worry. I'm the lawful master of the stone. I had both the right and the strength to use it. And what does he say he did? He forced, he says, the stone to his own will. See, the way the Palantir work is you look at them and you can see what the other where the other Palantir are. All Palantir means is far-seeing. What is that in modern English? Television. He's got a crystal television. That's pretty cool when you think about it. All kinds of channels, you know. So what does he see? What does anybody see who looks in one of the Palantir? They see whatever the person with the strongest will wants them to see. So, give away a little bit. We're going to see in just a few moments. Denethor has a Palantir. What has he seen?
What Saruman wants him to see.
Not Saruman.
Sauron.
What Sauron wants him to see. And what does Sauron want Denethor to see? What does he show him? Denethor tells us. He sees endless row upon row upon row of armies. This is like the Chinese army. You know, 1 million men strong, just the army. We're not talking Navy, Air Force, etc. Okay? 1 million men. Denethor sees this and he's like, we don't have a chance. We have no chance. He's filled with what as a result? Despair. There's no hope. Saruman looks in it, and what does he see? What Sauron lets him see. Okay? Aragorn looks in it, and he wrenches the power of the Palantir to his will. So he sees what he wants to see. And he makes Sauron see what he wants Sauron to see. Does Sauron see Strider of the North? No. He sees Aragorn in all his kingly glory. Is Aragorn carrying in his backpack, ermine robe? And no. Sauron sees Aragorn kind of the way Legolas saw him when Aragorn said, I'm Aragorn, son of Arathorn, and am called. And he saw that little white stone on his forehead. See, Sauron knows intimately what the Silmaril is. Because Beren and Luthien put him to sleep. Luthien sang him to sleep. He was a vampire, by the way. Vampiric wolf kind of a thing. Sang him to sleep so that they could get into Morgoth's fortress. Okay? What else did he show him? Remember this? Remember this? Okay. So he says Sauron now is filled with what? Doubt. Fear. And Gimli's like, but now he'll strike more swiftly. The hasty stroke goes oft astray. In other words, Sauron's going to act how? Rashly. Irrationally. He's not going to continue putting all of his... Think of the whole book as a giant chess match. He's not going to keep putting all of his men in play in the proper position. He's going to strike too soon. Where do we see that? The Battle of Pelennor Fields. In just a few moments. He strikes before he's got everything in play. Because he doesn't know what Aragorn's up to. He knows Aragorn is, that is, a future king of Gondor. He knows he has the sword that cut the ring off before. What doesn't he know? Does he have the ring? Because if he has the ring, Aragorn would be one who could challenge Sauron for supremacy. If Aragorn has the ring. Okay? So he tells them, we got to take the paths of the dead. Gimli's like, oh, I don't really want to. But whither you go, I will follow. Okay. Okay. 783, he talks with Eowyn. And Eowyn's like, man, why are you going to take the path of the dead? I mean, you are such a fine man, and you are going to die. Is it then your errand to seek death, she says in 783? That's all you're going to find. He says, no, they may suffer me to pass, but I have to try. He says it is not madness. Why? Think of the talk earlier about paths. For I go on a path appointed. In other words, when he quotes the lines on page 781, from the north shall he come, need shall drive him, he shall pass the door to the paths of the dead. That's a prophecy. Aragorn says, like the verses with my name, it's about me. I can pass. Okay? 784. She's like, okay, I understand you're going to go. Take me with you. Let me come. She says, Lord, if you must go, top of 784, then let me ride in your following. I'm weary of skulking in the hills. I wish to face peril and battle. Your duty is with your people. How does she interpret that statement? What does Eowyn say Aragorn ultimately means?
Cook some food, make the bed.
I'm a woman, therefore I have to stay home and cook the food and make the bed and get it all nice and ready for when the soldiers return. That's what you mean. Okay? Too often have I heard of duty. Am I not of the house of Eorl, a shield maiden and not a dry nurse? We don't know that she is a shield maiden. We don't know that she has ever participated in any kind of battle. Okay? I have waited on faltering feet long enough. Since they falter no longer. She's talking about Denethor. He doesn't falter. He's not limping. He's walking. He's ready to go off into battle. She says, may I not now, what's the verb she uses? Spend my life as I will. What do you do when you spend money? You lose it. What happens to that money that you had? Gone, right? You don't get it back. Okay? What is she saying?
She wants to die a glorious death.
Bingo. That is it. She wants to die a glorious death. She wants glory. She wants fame. She wants renown. And she wants to do it on her terms. Okay? Aragorn listens to her say that. May I not now spend my life as I will? Few may do that with honor. How does Aragorn interpret her saying, can I not spend my life? Well, if you take spend as give away, waste, use up, what's another word for it, for what she's actually talking about? Suicide. Can I not kill myself as I will? That is, as I desire. Not kill myself, slash her throat or her wrist or stab herself, but kill herself by marching needlessly off into battle. You've heard of, suicide by cop, where I've got a brother-in-law, used to be a cop, where somebody who doesn't have the guts to kill themselves instead does what? They take a weapon and they go up and challenge a cop. What is a cop trained to do? You come at me with a weapon, I am going to do what? I'm going to shoot you. I'm not going to shoot you in the knee. I'm not going to shoot you in the hip. I'm not going to shoot you in the shoulder. I'm going to shoot you where I've been trained to shoot. Center of your body mass. You are going down. Even if that weapon is a small little weapon. She's essentially saying she wants to go off into battle to die. Okay? Aragorn interprets that as, no, that's not honorable. But as for you, did you not accept the charge to govern the people until their lord's return? That is, what about the honor of what? Your word. Exactly. You gave your word. And you can almost read where she starts to, and he says, and if you hadn't been chosen, another marshal or captain would have been chosen. Maybe Aylmer. Aylmer wouldn't be able to get up and say, see y'all later, I'm riding off to battle, leaving them unprotected. He says somebody else would have had the duty, and they would have had to stay behind. And he could not ride from his charge. Shall I always be chosen, she says? Shall I always be left behind when the riders depart? To do what? Now this is her interpretation. To mind the house while they win renown? Is that all she's really doing? What did she do when the others rode off to Isengard and she went off to Dunharrow with the men, the aged men, the children, the infirm, the sick, and the women? She was in charge. She was their protector. There were some troops too. Okay? To do what? To mind the house and to find food and beds when the soldiers return. When what soldiers? Those who have won glorious battles. Aragorn. Now notice how he takes what she says and turns it. The time may come soon when none will return. Okay, now just stop, pause, and think about that for a moment. No heroes return. So you are left back here in this little village, and the enemy is going to come and do what? They are going to attack. What will it be your job then, Eowyn? Fight. And what will happen? Well, if the heroes died, you can be damn sure you and all those that you were with, you're going to die too. Pretty bleak, right? Then there will be need of valor without renown. Which valor is greater? The valor fought in a battle knowing you're going to win and people are going to sing of your praises. Or the valor fought in a battle knowing you're going to lose and nobody is ever going to remember you. Nobody is ever going to remember your last stand. Which takes greater courage? To ride off to victory? Or to be the last man standing in a futile battle? That's the option. He's essentially telling her, what you want solely is glory. Yet the deeds will not be less valiant because they are in praise. What does she do? She takes that. All your words are but to say, you are a woman and your part is in the house. Has he said any of that? No, he hasn't. But when the men have died in battle and honor, you have leave to be burned in the house. Why? Because you're unimportant, because you're a woman. That's not what Aragorn is saying. Okay? And he's kind of playing counselor here. Okay, Eowyn, so tell me, what do you really fear? Because we're getting a lot of good stuff out here. Tell me, how do you feel about this? She fears what? A cage. To stay behind bars until use and old age accept them. Okay? What does she mean?
Responsibility.
What kind? What does she want to do before she gets old? Something great. Something glorious. Something that will win renown. He says, and you counseled me not to adventure on the road that I had chosen because it's perilous. So may one counsel another. I do not bid you flee from peril, but to ride to battle where your sword may what? Two things. Notice which one she puts first. Ride to battle where your sword may win victory and renown. No. Renown and victory. She places victory second. Victory should always come first. Glory comes after that. This tells you her whole mentality is entirely skewed. She lives for glory. Why? Because that's what the Rohirrim are. They are, as I've said before, Anglo-Saxon warriors who lived for glory. Pagan Anglo-Saxon warriors, before the coming of Christianity, thought all you have going for you is the name that lives on after you die. That's it. That's the only thing you pass on. Okay? She says, I would not see a thing that is high and excellent. She's going, what a man. Thrown away needlessly. He says, neither would I. Stay here. Okay? Does she? Nope. So, Aragorn and the others go off through the paths of the dead. Pages 789 and following. Aragorn and the others, they go through the paths. And you know, this is a big, long scene in the film. They really draw this out. It takes less than 5 minutes to read the entire thing here. Okay? And the dead follow him. He goes to the Stone of Eric, 789. Says, Oathbreakers, why have you come? To fulfill our oath and have peace. He says, the hour has come at last. Now I go to Pelargir. You shall come after me. Clean the land of the servants of Sauron. We don't know how many dead there are, but it's probably thousands. How long have they been dead and yet not at peace? From the last time there was a king. Okay? Since Isildur. A couple thousand years. We get chapter 3, the muster of Rowan, where they're all getting ready. They're ready to ride to the aid of Minas Tirith. And Theoden says, Mary, you stay behind. It would really bother me if I knew harm came to you. And Mary's like, well, shucks, I offered you my sword because I really meant it. And a rider comes up behind Mary and says, page 804, where a will once not, a way opens. You wish to go whither the Lord of the Mark? I do. Then come with me. And the rider takes Mary up onto his horse underneath his cloak. So he's hidden. Mary says, but I don't know your name. Don't you? What does the rider give for a name? Dern Helm. Dern and Helm. Dern, these are both Old English words. Okay, Anglo-Saxon. Dern means secret, hidden. Helm just means protector. A helmet is a little protector that goes on the head. Okay? Who is Durnhelm? Eowyn. We're going to see it in just a few pages. In the film, you know right here who Durnhelm is. What does that do for later on? It takes all the suspense away. It removes the climax of that scene. So, Siege of Gondor. Gondor gets attacked. We're going to skip a bunch. Faramir shows up. Faramir goes, halfling. Saw one of those not 2 days ago. Gandalf's like, where, Faramir, where? He goes, he was going up the tower of Cirith Ungol. Let's see. And 8:12, 8:13, Faramir tells Denethor all this as well. And he says, I take it I did wrongly. You wish I had brought him to you. He says, yes, I do. I also take it you wish I had gone on the journey north instead of Boromir. Page 813 at the top. Yes, I wish that indeed. Boromir was loyal to me and no wizard's pupil. Okay, now imagine the sting of that. Well, gee, Dad, thanks. You wish I was dead. Okay. So, they argue about this thing, the thing that Frodo has. And Gandalf says to Denethor, well, what would you have done? He said, I know the use of this is perilous, so I would have hidden it. Okay? I wouldn't have used it. And Gandalf says, no, you wouldn't. Top of 8:14. Nonetheless, I do not trust you. Had I done so, I could have sent this thing hither to your keeping, spared myself and others much anguish. Now hearing you speak, I trust you less, no more than Boromir. No, stay your wrath. I do not trust myself. Okay, what's that supposed to mean to Denethor? I wouldn't even take it. And it was offered to him, right? Frodo said, you are wise and powerful, Gandalf. Will not you take the ring? Gandalf jumps back. Denethor, if you had received this thing, it would have overthrown you. Were it buried beneath the roots of Mandala, still it would burn your mind away as the darkness grows. And Denethor's if. It's out of her hands now. Okay? So, Pippin goes off to defend Osgiliath. In bottom 816, he tells Denethor, if I should return, think better of me. Denethor, it depends on the manner of your return. What does he mean? If you return tail between your legs, well, I'm not going to think very highly of you. Is that it? Possibly. I think also there's the idea of the old Spartan saying that Spartan wives supposedly said to their husbands when they went off to battle. Return with your shield or on it. Either victorious or dead. Okay? Just before Faramir leaves, Gandalf says, don't throw away your life. Your father still loves you. He will remember it. And he does, right? Because in the Siege of Gondor, we find out Osgiliath fails. Faramir is brought back in wounded, seemingly unconscious. Page 825. Gandalf is pretty much now in control of the city. And Denethor says, when he's told that the first circle of the city is burning, he says, why? Why do the fools fly? Because the men are running away from the gates. He says, why do the fools fly? Why does he say that? We're all going to burn. We're all going to die. Better to burn sooner than late, for burn we must. He says, me, I'm going to my funeral pyre. Take Faramir, and we'll go burn together. What's he doing? Can I not choose how to spend my life as I will? We see Denethor put in practice essentially what Eowyn was talking about. I'm not going to let them kill me. I'm going to kill myself. Okay? But who's he also going to kill? His son. So, Pippin sees all this and he's like, this isn't good. So he runs down to get Gandalf. He tells Baragon. Baragon goes up to stop Denethor. And he gets to Gandalf just as the gates to Minas Tirith are broken open for the first time in its history. Nobody has ever breached these gates before. And in rides the Lord of the Nazgul. And Gandalf's sitting there on his horse, all small, looking in front of him. You cannot enter here. Go back to the abyss prepared for you. Go back, fall into the nothingness that awaits you and your master. Go. Old fool, the captain of the Nine says, this is my hour. Do you not know death when you see it? Die now and curse in vain. He lifts his sword, it turns into flame, cue the special effects. Die now and curse in vain. That's a line from the Old Testament book of Job. There's just one word missing. Job's wife tells him, die now and curse God in vain. And Job says, though he slay me, yet I know my Redeemer liveth. Okay. Gandalf doesn't move. What happens? So you got this face-off. The captain of the Nine versus the leader of the Nine. One is all in black. He doesn't have a head. He has flame. And there's a crown. And he's got a burning sword. And the other's all in white. And he has a flame that kind of burns at times. He's on a black horse steed thing. He's on a white horse. And all of a sudden, off somewhere in the city, you hear a some damn rooster decides to crow. Why? It's sunrise. What is Tolkien doing with that rooster crowing? Why does he include it? What did Gandalf tell Denethor? If this night pass, and there, even if Gondor fails, and there is something that gives life or produces fruit in the next day, I will not have wholly failed. Well, there is this crow. This crow is part of the natural world. And what is the crow saying with its, this rooster, not crow. What is this rooster saying with its calling, whatever roosters do? I can't remember the word.
The world's still here.
Bingo. The world is still going on. The machinations of these powers don't affect this little crow. But the rooster crows, and what happens? There's a response. Outside the fields, we hear the riders of Rohan blowing their horns. And we get the ride of the Rohirrim. Okay? Chapter 6, Battle of the Pelennor Fields. Theoden has now gone berserk. He's got the battle frenzy on him. He's riding. What has the captain of the Nine done? When he hears the horns from the riders of the north, he leaves. He goes out to marshal his troops. Okay? But he now isn't on a horse anymore. Now, he's on some big black pterodactyl-like thing. Okay? And the shadow of it blocks out the sunlight, and when it does, Theoden's horse rears up and falls on Theoden. So he's pinned, and he's dying. Merry crawls over to him, and they say their last words. And we get pages 842. No, take that back. 840 and 41. Very bottom of 840. Okay, the captain of the Nine, he's sitting on this thing, which is huge. And Merry thinks, Kingsman, as a father you shall be to me, you said. And he's thinking, go to him. And his body says, no, because that way lies death. And he hears Durnhelm, begone, foul Dwemerlake, Lord of Carrion, leave the dead in peace. Come not between the Nazgul and his prey. For he will not slay thee in thy turn. We'll take you to Sauron, and he's going to play with you for 1,000 years, kind of a thing. Okay? Do what you will, but I will hinder it if I may. Hinder me, thou fool. No living man may hinder me. Surprise! No living man may hinder me. Eowyn takes that man to mean gendered being. Well, I'm not a man. Is it meant that way? You can't say no that it's not meant that way because she does kill him. And she doesn't have any special sword. Okay? But before she kills him, what happens? He gets stabbed right in the back of the knee with a special sword. Merry creeps up behind him after he swings his mace, breaks her shield and arm. Okay, what is a mace? What's it look like? It's essentially a club with a big knob on the end. It has one purpose. The person who wields a mace swings it so that he can hit riders or soldiers wearing plate armor or mail in the chest. And it just caves in the chest. It caves in everything. Because the ball weighs anywhere from 5 to 15 pounds, depending on the size of the mace and the strength of the wielder. You hit it in somebody's head, there's no head left. It just, like a cannonball, takes it off. Okay? She has that hit her shield, shatters the shield, shatters the arm behind it, she falls to the ground. And he's like, now I'm going to kill you. Okay? He gets up out of the mess and hits her with the mace, and Merry says, Eowyn, Eowyn, stabs him behind the knee so that the Black Rider falls. Okay? Imagine the pain that, but he's a wraith. He doesn't really have a knee per se. So why does he fall? Because the sword was forged in Gondolin for what purpose? To fight the Witch King of Angmar. And that's who this is. Merry stabs him. It's the sword that does it. He falls forward, and what's Eowyn doing? She's just holding her sword like this. And he falls right on it. He dies. What happens to his troops? The orcs that are fighting? Well, they keep fighting, but they now fight with much less purpose. It's almost like the scene in the one horrible Star Wars prequel, when they blow up the one thing and all the drones just kind of... Okay? This captain was the one who instilled fear in them. That's what made them fight. He's gone. Oh, by the way, what else is happening? Because this is going on. Okay, you've got Gondor here. Okay, out here is the fences that everybody's fighting over. This is the Pelennor fields here. Okay. Riders of the Rohirrim have come down from this way. So he has gone out, and let's say he's here. What's happening, meanwhile, down on the southern part of the Pelennor fields? You know, remember there's a river? And Anduin? And what has happened on the river? A whole bunch of boats show up. So that some of the troops, some of Sauron's troops here, men, because it's not just orcs, yell, the Corsairs of Umbar, thinking reinforcements. Instead, what happens? They haul up the pennant, the flag that Aragorn is carrying, and what do we see? The symbol of the King of Gondor. Flag that hasn't flown in 2,000 years. So, these guys are going, oh crap, the king is back. What does it do to all those in Gondor who are looking out, down, and see this? The king? Wait, it's got to be a ruse, right? It's got to be a trick. It's not a smart trick because, you know, it's like counterfeiting. Okay? So, the Battle of Pelennor Fields is a victory, right? It's a victory for Gondor and for the West. Sauron's forces are routed. Yeah, they lose some people. They hadn't died, but, you know, he was getting up there in years anyways. Time for Éomer to take over. Éowyn's hurt. Okay. She wanted to go out in glory. This is glory time, right? I mean, this is pretty good. So they get carried in on stretchers. Merry, little guys always have to walk in on their own because they get ignored in the councils of the great and mighty. So we have the pyre of Denethor. And what do we learn in that chapter? Gandalf saves Faramir. What is he not able to save from Denethor? Palantir. Now he knows how Denethor knew certain things. So that Denethor strikes the match, torches himself, and he dies holding that thing. And anybody who looks in the Palantir after them only sees what? His shriveled hands holding on to it. Okay? So we go to the houses of healing. And an old lady who works in the houses of healing remembers an old saying, the hands of a king are the hands of a healer. And Gandalf's like, hold that thought. He sends word to Aragorn. Aragorn comes in as Strider, not as Aragorn. How does he wake up, bring forth Faramir? What does he do? He uses the same herbs he used to rejuvenate Frodo after Frodo was stabbed in the arm by the captain of the Nine back on Weathertop. Okay, he steeps him in some water, washes his brow with it, and tells Faramir to come back. And Faramir says, I will, Lord. No, he says, page 866, my Lord, you called me, I come. What does the king command? Notice Aragorn didn't say, Faramir, it's the king. Come back. Faramir recognizes the authority of the king. Walk no more in the shadows. Rest a while. Take food. Be ready when I return. I will, Lord, for who would lie idle when the king is returned? Okay? And Yora says, do you hear that, king? And she's sitting there tweeting on away, so the word spreads. What about Éowyn? Does Aragorn call Éowyn back? No. Who does? Éomer does. Why? So Aragorn says, she loves you more than she loves me. What does she really love about Aragorn? And the film kind of film implies, Aragorn's, kind of flirting around with her. Meanwhile, why? Because Arwen's up in the north, and what's she going to know about it? I mean, they make Aragorn this existentially angst-ridden wimp, essentially. Okay? She loves the idea of Aragorn. She doesn't love Aragorn himself. She doesn't know him at all. Okay? He says, you have to be the one to call her back, to Éomer. What about Mary? He brings Mary back, and what does Mary say? Two things. I'm hungry, I need a pipe. As soon as he thinks about the pipe, he thinks of Theoden and says, nope, never going to smoke again. He tells Aragorn why, and Aragorn says, no, smoke in his memory. Okay, you got any weed? He essentially says to Aragorn, he says, do you think I've walked through fire and death to bring you pipeweed? Realizing he's looking at Mary's pack right behind him, and it's got a pouch of tobacco in it. Chapter 9, the last debate. What's the debate about?
What do we do now?
Bingo. Okay? They won a victory, right? But it was a battle. It wasn't the war. So now what do? What are their options? Okay, they're in Minas Tirith, or if you want to say Gondor. Okay? What can they do?
They can bunker up.
Bunker up, build a wall, a beautiful wall. It'd be orange, really nice, massive wall. Protect everybody. Okay? How long will the wall last?
Until it falls.
Yeah, not forever. That's the problem with walls. Okay? But if they build a wall, what are they saying? We'll wait. We will wait for Sauron to come. He will come eventually. And then what will happen? And then we'll die. Okay? So that's one option. What's another option? What's the other option? Take the fight to them. Gandalf says, the next, page 878, hardly has our strength sufficed to beat off the first great assault. The next will be greater. The war then is without final hope, as Denethor perceived. Imrahil, so you would have us retreat? Gandalf, that would be no new counsel. That's what we've been doing. Okay? Have you not done this and little more in all the days of Denethor? He says, no. This would be prudent. That is, to retreat, build up the defenses. I don't counsel prudence. I said victory could not be achieved by arms. That is, it will not be a military victory. I still hope for victory, but not by arms. For into the midst of all these policies comes the ring of power, the foundation of Barad-dûr, and the hope of Sauron. Okay? So he explains some stuff to them. And he says, if the ring is destroyed, here's what happens. He will lose, top of 879, the best part of the strength that was native to him in his beginning. And all that was made or begun with that power will crumble. Sauron will be a shadow of his former self. Other evils there are that may come, for Sauron is himself but a servant or emissary. It's not our part to master all the tides of the world, but to do what is in us for the succor of those years wherein we are set. Masterful little piece of wisdom Tolkien tucks in there. Because what's he saying? We don't have to solve all the problems of the world for all time. We, our age, our generation, what do we have to solve? The problems of our day. What are the problems of our day? Hunger and poverty? No. Because what are those? Those are always with us. You could solve hunger and poverty on a small scale, giving somebody a sandwich. Okay? So what kind of ills, what kind of evils is he talking about? Oh, I don't know. Fat, crazy little bastard over in North Korea who keeps shooting missiles over Japan. Imagine you lived in Japan. Okay, I remember, I'm sure Bill remembers, being alive during the 60s, having air raid drills because I lived in San Jose, California, less than 10 miles from NASA and Ames Research Center. Okay, bullseye for Russian, ICBMs. And we would have regular, monthly drills. Okay? Imagine being in Japan and seeing one of those rockets flying over you. The Japanese are, it's kind of like the United States World War II. Don't rouse a sleeping giant. Don't piss off the Japanese because you don't want them to go all World War II back on you. Okay? You even have the South Koreans talking about bringing nukes back to South Korea. We had them there till 1992. So that's a problem of our time. That was actually not a problem of Trump's making. That was a problem Obama kicked the can down the road. It was a problem George Bush kicked the can down the road. It was a problem Bill Clinton kicked the can down the road. Okay? It should have been handled long ago, because we've been at war, technically, since when? 1953. Okay? That's a problem that's not been taken care of. That's a problem we need to take care of. Social Security, that's a problem we can take care of. Because I don't think I'm going to see it. I'm damn sure none of you guys are. Okay? So he says, Sauron knows all this. And what's he thinking? He knows this precious thing which was lost has been found. See, this is the problem we don't have. We don't have a magic ring to find to solve all the really big problems of our age. We can't, like pie in the sky naive world leaders think, we can't put the nuclear genie back in the bottle. Let's denuclearize. Sure. What's the problem with that?
You already have the technology to do it again.
These things. All the information is available. You can download it in an hour. How to build a nuclear weapon. All you need? The ingredients. Okay? But the ring's different than that. The ring is an actual physical thing. Therefore, he's in great doubt. Why? Because some of us can use it. Gandalf could use it. Aragorn could use it. He's not even here. Elrond could use it. Galadriel could use it. Celeborn could use it. Glorfindel could use it. Círdan the shipwright, way over in the Grey Havens, he could use it. Okay. Imrahil could probably use it. Wouldn't be as strong as the others, but wouldn't be bad. Boromir could have used it. He wouldn't have been as strong as the others, but it wouldn't be bad. Okay. So what is Sauron fearing? They've got the ring. So what's he thinking? It's just a matter of time. One of them is going to take it and use it. So what does Gandalf say we should do? We need to draw Sauron out. We've partially done that. So how do you draw somebody who has a 1,000,000-man army out of his own kingdom? How do you get all those men to come out? You go up and knock on the front door. You challenge him. How do you challenge Sauron? Gandalf at the front of the column? That's a pretty good beginning. Don't discount that one. But what else? Aragorn. So what do? They lead 10,000 troops. They march off to Mordor and they go to the Black Gate. Sauron sends an emissary out. This is chapter 10. Right? Called the Mouth of Sauron. What does that mean? He's Sauron's ambassador. Okay, everybody in here knows diplomatic immunity, right? You're a diplomat. Your son lives with you, whatever. You go live in some foreign country. Your son breaks the laws of that foreign country. Guess what? It's like playing Monopoly and always having the get out of jail card. Diplomatic immunity says they can't touch me. Doesn't matter what the crime is. Same thing applies here. Believe me, you can get on the internet and read the stories of how diplomatic immunity has saved an awful lot of real sorry people. Okay? Rape, murder, all kinds of stuff. Traffic tickets, not very important. Okay? What does the mouth of Sauron, the ambassador, do? He comes out to party, right? Okay, we'll have a little peace treaty. What does he offer? Or what do they offer him? He comes out and says, when Gandalf, page 890, says, name the terms. Before he names the terms, what does he show them? Oh, by the way, I think you should see these. Elven cloaks. Okay. Mithril shirt. And Pippin goes, huh? Frodo! And he says, I see you have one of these little worms with you. I don't know what you see in them, but thank you. He confirmed. He recognized that. Gandalf's like, throw it took. You know, throw yourself. So, name your terms. Here's the terms. Page 890, in the middle of the page. The rabble of Gondor and its deluded allies shall withdraw at once beyond the Anduin, first taking oath never again to assail Sauron the Great in arms, open or secret. West of the Anduin, as far as the Misty Mountains and the Gap of Rohan, shall be tributary to Mordor. Okay, what is he talking about? Yeah, it's a lot of land. It's I'll make sure I keep that page. So he's saying, where did he say? West of the Anduin, as far as the Misty Mountains and the Gap of Rohan. That map won't work. It's not big enough. Okay. So they're right here, because the Gate of Mordor is up here on the northern part of the mountains. So he's saying everything, okay, the Misty Mountains are right here, everything to here and over here, all of this area. This is all now tributary. That is, you pay tribute to us. You are a satellite state of us. Okay? What else? Men there shall bear no weapons, but shall have leave to govern their own affairs. They shall help to rebuild Isengard, which they wantonly destroyed, and that shall be Sauron's, and there his lieutenant shall dwell. Not Saruman, but one more worthy of trust. And Gandalf knows who he's thinking. The mouth of Sauron is the one who's going to live in Orthanc. Gandalf says, this is much to demand for the delivery of one servant. Has the field of Gondor destroyed his hope in war? The mouth of Sauron says, do not bandy words in your insolence with the mouth of Sauron. Surety you crave, Gandalf gives none. If you sue for his clemency, you must first do his bidding. These are his terms, take them or leave them. And Gandalf says, these we will take. Casts aside his cloak, white light comes shining out. He raises his hand, the foul messenger recoils. Gandalf seizes and takes from him the tokens, coat, cloak, and sword. Says, these we will take in memory of our friend, but as for your terms, we reject them utterly. Get you gone, for your embassy is over, death is near to you. We did not come here to waste words in treating with Sauron, faithless and accursed, still less with one of his slaves. Okay? And at that moment, the gates open and the army of Sauron pours forth. And the last thing Pippin remembers before he passes out is a troll falls on him. Pippin stabs upwards, bottom 892, and the written blade of Westernessa pierced through the hide and went deep into the vitals of the troll. Blood comes gushing out, and he hears. Pippin hears, the eagles are coming, the eagles are coming. And he thinks, Wait, that's Bilbo's story. He's thinking of the battle Bilbo fought in The Hobbit. The only thing is, he passes out, and the eagles are coming. But Tolkien then drops that whole thread. And we go all the way back to the character of Thungal. Sam wakes up. He still has the ring on. Okay, and then he takes off the ring, $8.99, and he goes through the little opening. And he looks off into Mordor. He sees the mountain of fire. Okay, he sees the tower of Cirith Ungol and all its strength. He sees Barad-dûr far in the north, and he thinks of the great last battle with the last alliance, the men of Westerness and such. And we're told, the bottom of 900. Only too clearly now, Sam saw how hopeless it would be for him to creep down under those many eyed-walls and past the watchful gate. And even if he did so, he could not go far on the guarded road beyond. So he starts to think of the ring. No sooner had he come inside of Mount Doom, burning far away, than he's aware of a change in his burden. As it drew near the great furnaces, where the great furnaces were, in the deeps of time it had been shaped and forged, the ring's power grew, and it became more fell, untamable, save by some mighty will. As Sam stood there, even though the ring was not on him, he's not wearing it, but hanging by its chain, what happens? He feels enlarged, like he grows to the size of a warrior. And he sees himself doing what? Cleansing Mordor. Killing all the armies of Sauron. Planting a garden in it. And we're told, 901, in that hour of trial, it was the love of his master that helped most to hold him firm. That and his plain hobbit sense. He knew in the core of his heart he wasn't large enough to bear such a burden. The one small garden of a free gardener was all his need and due, not a garden swollen to a realm. So what is it that saves Sam? That doesn't save Frodo. His hobbit sense. His, I don't need all that. Just give me a little, 20 square feet, and I'll be happy with that. So he puts the ring on. He goes past the watchers. Bell rings. And I'm going to skip a bunch. He goes and rescues Frodo. How? How does he get to where Frodo is? Or how does he know where Frodo is? He starts to sing. And he hears a response. Climbs up the ladder. Finds Frodo. And what does Frodo say when he sees Sam? He says, 911, right exactly in the middle. They've taken everything, Sam, said Frodo. Everything. Do you understand? Everything. Well, not everything, Mr. Frodo. It hasn't failed, not yet. I took it, Mr. Frodo, begging your pardon. I've kept it safe. It's around my neck now. You've got it. You've got it here. Sam, you're a marvel.
Give it to me, watch. You can't have it. It's mine, my precious.
Okay. Why does Frodo do that? Because he has no control. He goes, okay, here it is. Gives it back to him. So, they go on down, and they enter the land of shadow. How much food and water do they have? None. I mean, they have a little bit of limbus, but they don't have any water. So they're thinking, where are we going to get water? Bottom of 918. Sam says, there now, Mr. Frodo, it's you that's talking of water this time. If only the lady could see us or hear us, I'd say to her, your ladyship, all we want is light and water. Just clean water and plain daylight. Better than any jewels. Okay, so notice what Sam's doing. If we could talk to Galadriel, here's what I'd say. Okay? Top of 919. They're hiding there, kind of under some rocks. And away to their left, southward, against the sky that was turning gray, the peaks and high ridges of the great range began to appear dark and black, visible shapes. Why? Light was growing behind them. Slowly it crept towards the north. There was battle far above in the high spaces of the air. Now, if that's not biblical language, I don't know what is. The billowing clouds of Mordor were being driven back. Sam says, "Look at it, Mr. Frodo. Look at it. The wind's changed. Something's happening. He's not having it all his own way. His darkness is breaking up out in the world there. I wish I could see what is going on." And the narrator tells us. It's the morning of the 15th of March, and over the Vale of Anduin the sun was rising above the eastern shadow, and the southwest wind was blowing, and Theoden lay dying on the Pelennor fields. In other words, what just happened? No living man may kill me. Surprise. The captain of the Nine has died. Okay. What did Sam say he would ask for from Galadriel? Light and water. He got light. Okay. Bottom of the next page. They find a little trickling stream. Sam springs towards it. "If ever I see the lady again, I will tell her, light and now water. Let me drink first, Mr. Frodo." Frodo, "It's okay, but there's room for both of us." It's not what Sam means. Sam wants to test it. Make sure it's not brackish. Make sure it's not poisonous. Okay. So, they go on. And there's a lot of this chapter I almost always skip because it's just plodding on along. Chapter 3, Mount Doom. Frodo's resting. Sam says it looks like it's going to be 50 miles if it's anything. And he starts to think, what can I do? 9:34. It comes to him. There could be no return. It's the first time Sam realizes or thinks, we don't go back. So that was the job I felt I had to do when I started. To help Mr. Frodo to the last step and then die with him. Well, if that's the job I have to do, then that's what I must do. But I would dearly like to see Bywater again and Rosie Cotton and her brothers and the Gaffer. And he says, things just went wrong when Gandalf fell. He would have done something. But even as hope died in Sam, or seemed to die, it was turned to a new strength. Sam's plain hobbit face grew stern, almost grim, as the will hardened in him. Okay? So they keep going on. 9:37. Sam offers to carry the burden. He says, let me carry it a bit for you, master. You know I would, gladly. Frodo, stand away, don't touch me. Too late now, Sam dear. You can't help me in that way again. I am almost in its power now. Notice, Frodo realizes the eye that is Frodo is nearly gone. I could not give it up, and if you tried to take it, I should go mad. Okay. I could not give it up. And yet they keep going on. Why? Well, that's the job they have to do. Okay? So they get there, or almost there. Bottom of 9:40. They're on the base of the mountain. And Sam says, now for it. Now for the last gasp. He wakes up Frodo. He realizes Frodo ain't going to make it. Well, I said I'd carry him if it broke my back. Come on, Mr. Frodo. I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you and it as well. He picks up Frodo. He thinks Frodo's going to be heavy because of the weight of the ring. And instead, Frodo's light as a feather. Why? What's happening to Frodo? He's gradually becoming a wraith. That is, the longer you have one of these things, the thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner you become. I know, Gollum's had one for 600 years, but Gollum hasn't borne one to its destruction. The ring is kind of like accelerating its effect on Frodo. Okay? So they crawl up, 9:42 at the bottom of the page. And as they're crawling up Mount Doom, the narrator takes us back to what's happening outside the Black Gate. They came to the path and found that it was broad, paved with broken rubble and beaten ash. Frodo clambered onto it, and then moved as if by some compulsion. He turned slowly to face the east. Far off the shadows of Sauron hung, but torn by some gust of wind out of the world, or else moved by some great disquiet within, the mantling clouds swirled and for a moment drew aside, and then he saw rising blacker and darker than the vast shades, Tower of Barad-dûr. One moment only it stared out, but as from some great window immeasurably high, there stabbed northward a flame of red, the flicker of a piercing eye. The eye was not turned to them, to Frodo and Sam. No, it was gazing north, to where the captains of the west stood at bay. In other words, they're outside the Black Gate. All that happened to Pippin there is about to occur. Okay? Frodo starts to reach for the ring, and Sam has to hold his hand down. Frodo gets up, Sam gets up, and suddenly Sam feels a weight on his back. Page 943.
Wicked master! Wicked master cheats us. Cheats Smeagol. Go home. He mustn't go that way. He mustn't hurt Precious. Give it to Smeagol. Yes, yes, give it to us. Give it to us.
And Sam just gets pissed. Okay? But instead, we hear Frodo yell, down, down. He's clutching the ring. Down, you creeping thing, and out of my path. Your time is at an end. You cannot betray me or slay me now. And Sam is looking at this, and we get the description from Sam's perspective. Suddenly, as before, under the eaves of the Emyn Sam saw these two rivals with other vision. A crouching shape, scarcely more than the shadow of a living thing, in other words, like a wraith. A creature now wholly ruined and defeated, yet filled with hideous lust and rage. And before it stood stern, untouchable now by pity, a figure robed in white. But at its breast it held a wheel of fire. And out of the fire there comes a voice. Okay? That's the ring. So the voice comes from the ring. Begone and trouble me no more. If you touch me ever again, you shall be cast yourself into the fire of doom. Notice it doesn't say, if you ever touch me again, you're going to dance like a silly, crazy thing, and you're going to fall into the cracks of doom. No, you shall be cast. Okay? It backs away. Frodo says, I must go on. And Sam turns around and says, now, at last, I can deal with you. Listen to Gollum. Don't kill us. Don't hurt us with nasty, cruel steel. Let us live, yes, live, just a little longer. Gollum knows what's going to happen. Lost, lost, we're lost. And when Precious goes, we'll die. Yes, die into the dust. Dust. When Precious goes, we'll die. The voice said, if you ever touch me again, you will be cast into the fire. Sam's hand wavered. His mind was hot with wrath and the memory of evil. It would be just to slay this treacherous, murderous creature, just and many times deserved. And it seemed the only safe thing to do. But something stops him. He could not strike this thing lying in the dust, forlorn, ruinous, utterly wretched. Lost, totally lost. He himself, though only for a little while, had borne the ring, and now dimly he guessed the agony of Gollum's shriveled mind and body. Enslaved to that ring, unable to find peace or relief. And then what does Tolkien do? He doesn't say, unable to find peace or relief, period. What does he say? Ever in life again. Why? Why qualify finding peace and relief with ever in life again?
There may be something after death.
Bingo. It suggests he might find peace and relief in death, which is an implication that Gollum will go on after death. Okay? But Sam had no words to express all this. In other words, this is all Catholic theology and philosophy. This is over Sam's head. Oh, curse you, you stinking thing. Go on. And he turns and he starts to go up, Sam does, and he cries for Frodo, and we hear, page 945, I have come, but I do not choose now to do what I came to do. I will not do this deed. The ring is mine. Slips it on his finger, and at that moment, a whole bunch of things all happen simultaneously. Okay? One, Gollum jumps Sam from behind. Two, Sauron immediately turns from facing the captains of the north and goes, oh shit, and turns the opposite direction. Because as soon as Frodo says, the ring is mine, and puts it on, the little alarm bell starts ringing in Barad-dûr. Okay? What else? The other 8 Nazgul immediately leave where they are, and they hightail it to Orodruin to save the ring. Okay? When that happens, all the forces fighting the captains of the West lose their will to fight. Okay? That's all that we get described there in those 2 paragraphs on page 946. Sauron suddenly realizes, oh, what a fool I've been. Gandalf, you damn tricksy trickster, you. Never would have thought of this one. Okay? Sam gets up, and what does he see? He sees Gollum dancing around, seemingly with something. And he sees Gollum's mouth open, and all of a sudden, there's Gollum, there's Frodo, and there's a finger with the ring still on it. Precious, 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 my precious, oh, my precious. And with that, even as his eyes were lifted up to gloat on his prize, he stepped too far, toppled, wavered for a moment. Precious. Notice how different that is from the film, where the ring falls, and Frodo's like, he gets this straight from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I can get it, Sam. Just help me down. I can. Master, Indy, let it go, It's completely ridiculous. Anyways, what happens with the mountain? You drop the ring in, and what's that kind of like the signal for it to do? Super eruption. Yeah, this is, Yellowstone, getting ready, cataclysmic and such. So there's Frodo and Sam sitting there. Frodo's holding his hand. It's bound up, but, And Frodo says, well, this is the end, Sam Gamgee. Master, Sam cries. Your poor hand. I have nothing to bind it with or comfort it. I would have spared him a whole hand of mine, rather. But he's gone now, beyond recall, gone forever. Listen to Frodo. Yes. Do you remember Gandalf's words? Even Gollum may have something yet to do. But for him, Sam, I could not have destroyed the ring. Okay, that's kind of... What kind of language is that Frodo just used? He didn't destroy the ring. Frodo did not destroy the ring. What did he do? It's mine. The ring was going to destroy Frodo. Who destroyed the ring? Gollum. The quest would have been in vain, even at the bitter end. So let us forgive him. In other words, everything that Gollum has done, clean slate. Why? The ring is destroyed. I'm glad you're here with me, Sam, here at the end of all things. What does he mean? While we sit here and all this lava erupts all around us and burns us to a crisp. Been nice knowing you, Sam, because we're going to die. And Sam's sitting there going, well, maybe not. Meanwhile, back outside the gate of Mordor, Gandalf's like, it's done. Because what do they see? Big, huge shadow behind the gates, reaches out like a hand toward them, and blows away. So Gandalf sends Gwaihir the Wind Lord to do a little errand for him. And we go back to, I'm glad that you are here with me, said Frodo, here at the end of all things. And Sam says, so am I. Glad you're with me too. But, you know, I don't want to give up yet. It's not like me somehow, Frodo. Maybe not, Sam, but it's like things are in the world. We're going to die, Sam. Hopes fail, and end comes. We're lost in ruin and downfall. There is no escape. Yeah, but we don't have to stay right here. Can we maybe go outside the vent of the volcano, get a little further away from all this lava? Well, okay, Sam, it'll buy us a little more time, I guess, but we're both going to die. So they go down. And they start talking about the tale of Frodo the Nine-Fingered and stuff. And Gwaihir the Windlord sees them, comes down and rescues them. Okay? And the rest of that chapter, the Field of Cormallen, I'm going to skip. Why? Because a lot of it's bad singing, bad poetry. Right? And what is it about? Reunions, people getting healed, and all that kind of stuff. The Steward and the King, chapter 5. I'm going to skip through this pretty quickly too. Okay? Because what happens? The Steward and the King. Frodo's crowned king. Aragorn is crowned. What happens to Faramir? He's the steward. Where does he live? Ithilien. Okay. Actually, who does he live with? Who marries him and why? Éowyn, shield maiden. Remember? There's this scene when they're at the. I skipped it, and I shouldn't skip it, but we got to time-wise. There's this scene, you know, they're at the Houses of Healing still, okay? The others have gone off to war. She's angry because they went off and she got left behind. And Faramir comes out and he kind of stands looking out over the fields and he says, you know, you don't mind if I just kind of stand here with you and look out at the pretty view? And she's like, no, that's okay. I mean, but I'm a cold bitch, essentially. And they do this for several days. What happens eventually? What happens specifically to Éowyn? Her healing in the Houses of Healing, it's not just a healing of body. It's a healing of mind and soul. Because what happens to her mentality, her outlook on life? Exactly. She is no longer a shield maiden. What does she want to do instead? She wants to be a healer. Okay? She wants to bring life, which only women can do. She doesn't want to take life anymore. And so she agrees to wed Faramir, if the king approves. Right? So you have this, what a friend of mine, one of my colleagues who teaches this course, he's the one who clued me into this reading up because it had never hit me before. What happens with Éowyn is like a conversion. She goes from being pagan, Anglo-Saxon, Germanic, almost to Christian Anglo-Saxon. Because now she wants to serve life rather than take life. Before, what did she say? I am no serving woman. Well, that's exactly what she becomes. Okay? So, Steward and the King. Then we get to chapter Many Partings. Chapter 6, at the very bottom of that first page. We will actually finish this, believe me. Arwen gives Frodo a gift. What is that gift? And notice, by the way, this is the only time we see Arwen in the entire novel. Somebody took issue with my comment in one of the YouTube lectures about why, they substituted Arwen for Glorfindel, because you never really hear anything about Glorfindel anymore. And Arwen is such a major figure throughout the story. Really? Arwen isn't the motivating figure, okay, behind Aragorn. It's ridding the world of Sauron. Yeah, then he gets to wed Arwen. That's a motivation, yes. But she's even more in the wings than Glorfindel is. But here's where she's really important. What does she give Frodo?
Her ticket.
Her ticket. Her ticket where?
To us.
To Pelennor. She makes the choice her great, grandmother, whatever it is, did. She makes the same choice that Luthien Tinuvial made. Luthien wasn't half human though. She was half Maiar, half Maya, and half elf. But she chooses to be human, so that when she dies, she will leave the world forever. She will never be reunited with her elf kin. Luthien makes the same choice. When she dies, she will never be reunited with her father and mother. Her mother's dead. She will, as humans do in Tolkien's cosmology, leave the world and go somewhere else. Because in Tolkien's cosmology, death of humans is the gift of Iluvatar to man. Yeah, I got to read the Silmarillion and some of his other notes to figure out what it all means. It's where he works in his Christian theology. Okay? Death is a gift. And for humans, it means what? Reunion with Iluvatar. See, elves, in Tolkien's cosmology, when the world comes to an end, guess what happens to elves? They disappear. That is, Revelation, the new heaven and new earth, no elves. No dwarves, no hobbits, no ints, just humans. Okay? So, the many partings is, you could call it, the final breakup of the Fellowship of the Ring. Because what do we see? Aragorn rides north for a little while, but then he and Arwen turn aside. Okay? And then after a while, Galadriel turns aside. And then others turn aside, and you get to the Prancing Pony, and there's Gandalf and Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin. Now, I'm going to come back for just a moment. And at the Prancing Pony, they hear about troubles in the Shire, and where does Merry think? Well, we've got you with us, Gandalf. He goes, not anymore, you don't. I'm done. I did what I was set out to do. His task, the task of all the wizards, Saruman included, was to what? Was to be a counter to Sauron. Sauron's gone. Their job is done. He says, I'm going to do what? I'm going to go have a talk with Tom Bombadil. You guys, he says, do you think everything that's happened over the last year was an accident? No. You've been prepared for this moment. So it's like all their journeys, all their experiences was preparing them for what? To take control in their own backyard. If we talked about the introduction when we did, which we didn't, Tolkien says the scouring of the Shire was foreseen at the beginning of the novel. In other words, he had this idea when he first started it. Because a lot of people said, oh, well, that all had to be influenced by the end of World War II. When England was going through great deprivation and there were lawless gangs and stuff. Tolkien said, nope. It had to be that way. Why? Because Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin have to leave the Shire to come back to discover what? What did Frodo say he wanted to do when he left the Shire? Before that. He says, I want to leave the Shire to protect it. So it will stay the same. And he's going to tell Sam at the Grey Havens, I did save the Shire, Sam, but not for me. It's been saved for others. Okay? They had to come back and see. You can't go home. Why? Because even if the Shire didn't change, what about Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin? Merry and Pippin come back. How are they different? They're a foot taller than they were when they left. They're now the tallest hobbits there are. Pippin, is he flighty anymore? No, not really. You get a big old mountain troll fall on you, and guts oozing out a little. Kind of, takes the flightiness out of you. Okay? No, they've seen and done things so that they are changed. But before all that, we meet another character who we've seen before, and Gandalf and others offer this character repeatedly opportunities to change. Saruman. Okay? Treebeards let him go because he can't abide caging things up, and they meet with him. Gandalf says, "You can come with us. You can still change." Saruman won't take it. They finally get back to the Shire. What do they see? Who is Sharky? Saruman. Okay? And we see there at the Scouring of the Shire, the very end of that chapter, after they've had the battle, men have been killed, hobbits have been killed. Pages 10, 18, and 19, Frodo and Saruman are talking. And Saruman says, when he's talking about the kind of mischief he's done, "I have already done much that you will find it hard to mend or undo in your lives, and it will be pleasant to think of that and set it against my injuries." Frodo, well, if that's what you find pleasure in, I pity you. It will be a pleasure of memory only, I fear. Go at once, never return. The hobbits want to kill him. Frodo's, don't kill him. Don't kill him. And he says, Frodo says, "Do not believe him. He has lost all his power, save his voice that can still daunt you and deceive you if you let it. But I will not have him slain. It is useless to meet revenge with revenge. It will heal nothing." What did Frodo say to Gandalf at the beginning of the novel, The Shadow of the Past, about Gollum? He is just an enemy and he deserves death. What's he thinking? Simple revenge. Eye for an eye. What has happened to Frodo? Notice, revenge will heal nothing. If Frodo had gotten his wish at the beginning, Sauron would be in control. So Saruman calls for Wormtongue. And as they go by, Saruman tries to stab Frodo. Sam draws his sword. Frodo says, "No, Sam, do not kill him even now. He has not hurt me, and in any case, I do not wish him to be slain in this evil mood." That is, if he's going to be slain, we need to be in good moods. I don't mean that facetiously. It means it can't be out of anger. He was great once, of a noble kind that we should not dare to raise our hands against. He has fallen, and his cure is beyond us. Notice, he's fallen. He doesn't say he's sick. He's fallen. But I would still spare him. Why? In the hope that he may find it. He wants Saruman to live so that he might possibly find his cure. What does Tolkien clearly mean by the word cure? Yeah. That he might find his redemption. Listen to Saruman. And this is how you know that's what Tolkien means. "You have grown very much. You are wise and cruel." Is Frodo being cruel? No, he's not. Saruman takes it as cruelty, however. Why? Because of what he says. "You've robbed my revenge of sweetness. And now I must go hence in bitterness, in debt to your mercy." That is, I've got to wander the world because you let me live. What did he want to do? Think of Eowyn. This was his attempt to spend his life, and Frodo wouldn't take it. "I hate it and you. Well, go, and I will trouble you no more. Do not expect me to wish you health and long life. You will have neither." Okay? Frodo tells Wormtongue, "You don't have to go with him. You haven't harmed me. You might have eaten Lotho, but, you haven't harmed me." And what happens? A look of wild hatred came into Wormtongue's red eyes. "You told me to. You made me." And Wormtongue kills Saruman, and the hobbits kill Wormtongue. and we get chapter 9. At the Grey Havens, Frodo and Sam. Notice, summer goes by. When is the ring destroyed, by the way? Anybody know?
March something.
Yep, March 25th. Anybody know why March 25th? It's an important date in the church calendar. Tolkien talks about this in one of his letters. It's the Annunciation. When Gabriel comes to Mary and says, "You will bear a child." Okay? Tolkien also believed, I don't know how he believed this, but he did. Tolkien also believed, according to 17th or 18th century English bishop, it's also the day when the world was created, in like 4004 BC, according to this guy named Bishop Ussher. Okay? So both these dates are important, all right? So the year goes by, and what happens the following year on October 6th? Frodo takes sick. Why? Because that's the anniversary of when he was stabbed in the arm. And then the following spring, he also gets ill again around, I'm trying to remember the date. It's around March 10th or 15th. I can't remember the date exactly. When Shelob bit him on the neck. Okay? So they go off to the Grey Havens, bottom of 1025. One evening, Sam comes in, asks Frodo, "What's wrong?" He says, "I am wounded, Sam. It will never really heal." This was October the 6th. So, a couple of years go by, and Frodo and Sam take a ride. And they go off to the Grey Havens, and Frodo says goodbye. And that's where Sam says, "But I thought you were going to live happily ever after." And Frodo says, 1029. When Frodo tells him, "You can't come, Sam." "No, Sam, not yet anyway. Not further than the Havens, though you too were a ring bearer, if only for a little while. Your time may come." And if you read the appendix, Sam does eventually go. All ring bearers, okay, are given this chance. Kind of makes me wonder if that includes Gollum. Anyways, he says, "You can't always be torn in two, Sam. You will have to be one and whole for many years." Sam, "But I thought you were going to enjoy the Shire." "So I thought too once. But I've been too deeply hurt, Sam. I tried to save the Shire, and it has been saved, but not for me. It must often be so, Sam, when things are in danger. Someone has to give them up, lose them, so that others may keep them." Sacrifice, in other words. "But you are my heir, and everything I have I give to you. And you also have Rose and Eleanor, and Frodo lad will come, and Rosie last." He and Rosie end up having, I don't remember, it's like 12 children. And he's mayor of Hobbiton for, 7 times in a row or something. So, Elrond, Galadriel go on. Gandalf gets in the boat. Okay. Arwen doesn't. Bilbo's there. He's now past the age of the old Took. And Merry and Pippin show up. Why? Is it to say goodbye to Frodo? It's not actually. Gandalf calls for Merry and Pippin. He sends word for Merry and Pippin for one very simple reason. Middle of 1030. It will be better to ride back 3 together than 1 alone. If Sam has to make that ride back by himself, imagine the hellacious journey that would be. Instead, now he has his friends with him. They turn aside to go back to their own homes, and that story ends with that quote that I read earlier. Sam rides up the hill, and as he gets towards Bag End, there was yellow light. What does the yellow light suggest? Why is it yellow, first of all? There's a fire in the hearth. It's autumn, after all. And the evening meal was ready. He can smell it wafting out the door. And he was expected. And I think he was expected means Rose is standing there at the door. The door is open. She is waiting for him. And he comes in, She puts him in his lap. Is this, patriarchal society? She's merely serving him? Don't even go there. He sits down, daughter in his lap, wife at his side. Happy ever after. Tolkien does both his idea of eucatastrophe and the kind of story that Sam says those that are inside the story want to have as the happy ever after. Is the story Sam's story, though, or is it Frodo's? Now, in his letters, Tolkien tells us Sam is the hero, even though the tale is more about Frodo, and Sam's the sidekick. So how is Sam the hero? What does Sam continually do more than Frodo does?
He kept hope to the last.
Yes, he kept him to the quest. What did Frodo say there? He said, someone has to give them up, lose them, so that others may keep them. What did Sam do all throughout the journey?
Sacrifice.
Everything he had, he gave away, he dropped by the wayside. His cooking ware, for example, got rid of it. Why? Unimportant. He was going to have to carry Frodo. Okay? He sacrifices everything for what? For Frodo. Okay? Frodo doesn't sacrifice everything, does he? He doesn't. And in fact, because of the power of the ring, he claims it. Okay, stop there. We actually did it. We got through the whole damn thing. So, for Tuesday, I know this is asking a lot, but I am going to ask a lot. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets. Now, most of you have said that you've read these before, so it shouldn't be that hard to quickly breeze back through them, because the first one really is a breeze. Okay. Chamber of Secrets is a little bit darker, but not much. We'll try to do both books on one day. I've done it before, so.